And Miss Janet came in the studio. We're about to give her a very awesome introduction in a brief moment. But first off, what are you reading?
Well, because I'm a literary magazine editor, I don't go out buying books to read. I read submissions from people every day. And because I've been so busy lately, I've got a stack of things that I'm supposed to read to get through before I can go on to anything else. But I can say that for my husband John's birthday a few weeks ago, I researched this and saw that Thomas Jefferson decided that he loved the idea of understanding things about the Bible, but everything that is within it, you try to learn things from the Bible, but there's all these things about miracles and things like that that distract from the message or the philosophy, the morals of the Bible. So he actually took two English and two original versions of the Bible, meticulously cut out the parts that were actually about the teachings and not about the things of rising people from the dead or whatnot.
Yeah.
And so we found this very, very short Jefferson's Bible, and so every once in a while we might read from parts of that. It's just the strangest thing.
That sounds like all the good parts of it, like the kind of the teachable lessons.
It's actually things about.
It's the Jefferson cut.
I kind of like it. I kind of been into the miracles though.
We'll make the Martha's version of that one with all the miracles in it.
Love it. But no, I've heard about that, Janet, and I saw some kind of documentary on it. And I mean, anything that Thomas Jefferson's up to, I mean, what a brilliant.
Somebody heard about it and they contacted. They think they found part of something info on it, and they contacted the family and asked them, does he have any evidence? They looked around, they said, hey, what do you know, we've got these big Bibles with sections cut out of it. Maybe the Smithsonian or someplace would be a good place for this, and not in our home. And so yeah, I heard about this and I'm like, I have to get this and have this shipped, because we just recently moved here and it would be a great addition with all of the Bibles and stuff on one of the shelves in our house.
Very nice.
Well, I am currently in book limbo. I have, like I said, I started Song of Solomon, but I keep, and no, I'm not going to pull a Bradbury anytime soon. My brain is too much going on for me right now to even try one of those. I get the feeling I want to try to do a mix of, reading, fiction and nonfiction along with it. Like, it would have been, in retrospect, it would have been perfect to read Memoirs of a Man by Sidney Poitier along with Song of Solomon. That would have been an interesting combination.
You're too deep for me, Jack. You were so deep.
I was reading one of the chapters when he was young, and it was interesting to find out with regards to his acting background. He was actually in between jobs, needed money before the winter set in. And he went out for a job, and they were completely thrown off by his accent. They couldn't stand him, they threw him out. He went back watching movies where people, quote unquote, talk normal, and just went back at it again and got a job as a stand-in, by the skin of his teeth. And he went out and he did horribly. I think his first actual job, he went out and did horribly. The crowd loved it. He got rave reviews. And he got a job. That's when he got a job as a stand-in. And it turns out he got a phone call saying that the stand-in, some young cat named Harry Belafonte, couldn't make it, and he made the cut. And the rest was history. It is interesting. The book itself is a ride. You look at everything he went through and stuff like that, and I won't be able to rave enough about Song of Solomon once I'm done. But speaking of things to rave about, I believe it is time for our guest. Ladies and gentlemen, Janet Kuypers is a professional performance artist. She is a publisher. She edits 2 literary magazines, cc&d and Down in the Dirt, and while running Scars Publications. She has 90 plus books published, poetry, prose, novels, and art, sung in 3 bands with shows around the country, and her CD releases, 40 plus, appear at iTunes and other online vendors. Janet Kuypers hosted the Cafe Gallery Poetry Open Mic from 2010 to 2015 with weekly poetry videos and podcasts. It's great to have you in the studio today.
Thank you very much. And I should probably, with that big little intro, say that that open mic was in Chicago because I'm a recent transplant from. I don't think I meant that said anything about Chicago because I was running this open mic in Chicago for years, and we've just recently moved here.
I spent some time in York City, and I gotta say the poetry scene there is awesome. It's worth
Awesome.
the reputation precedes it. In addition to that, and just immersing yourself in it, it just goes without saying. It just goes without saying.
Janet, why did you move here and did you move your mic with you?
I moved here because my husband's job meant I had to move, so I had to. It was against my will. It was against my will. I had to give up my open mic, which is very, very sad. I handed it over to somebody else, and they're running it, and I still get notices about it, which is great. But I do have to say, I was the only open mic host in Chicago that recorded features. I would always jokingly say, by the way, we're in cahoots with the NSA, we're recording everything that you say and do here, and we're going to put it into a podcast. If you have a problem with that, it'll go up on YouTube and it'll be a weekly podcast. If you have a problem with it, let me know and I'll pull your stuff from, which once somebody did that, I think because their husband was stalking them and we had to have no record of them being there, that kind of thing. But otherwise, you know, people are like, yeah, get me out in public, please, somehow. And so I do that. And I eventually had a little book release, The Chosen Few, of people that had found features in the space. And the podcast surprisingly went well. I asked my husband to look it up. I'm like, I don't know if anybody is downloading these things, you know, because, you know, what, 30 minutes of poetry in a show somewhere, why would I? So he looked it up and he was checking. He's like, well, weeding out spammers, it looks like one is downloaded on average every 45 minutes.
Wow.
That's impressive.
That is.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. So that's like a thrill.
That's what happens when you put in the work, you know.
Exactly.
And I mean, just it's clear in your bio, it's clear in everything you do. So there's a lot to be said about that. So now that you're here, how do you find life in Austin?
The weather is nice. The open mics that I've seen, which are few, but I mean fewer than Chicago, but then again I couldn't go to everything that was going on in Chicago anyway. Things that I've seen around seem nice. I've gone to things in Round Rock and, you know, well, I'm just trying to think of like where things were.
Right.
And also because this is a music-centered place and my husband is a great guitarist and I sing, we would go to places to sing every once in a while as well, which I think he likes to. I'm like, do you want to? But because of the move, he's like, I have not been practicing anything on the guitar, so, you know. so because of actually the recent passing of Prince, I actually went to a karaoke thing and I did When Doves Cry. And I'd never sung that, but I'm like, well, let's just do this.
Excellent.
You know, why not?
Okay.
So we're trying to find
That
things
must
to
have
do.
been pretty emotional. I mean, how was the crowd at that performance?
They applauded more than usual, I will say that. And then I just said, well, I think for the rest of the night, I'm just going to sing songs that dead people who have died. So I'm like, I covered Two Birds with One Stone. The next one, this one was written by David Bowie, and Nirvana covered it. So I'm covering Two Birds with One Stone on this one. Oh, guess what? Now John Lennon was shot. I'm going to do Imagine, you know. So I was just doing things like that.
Just make it a tribute night.
That's neat.
Elvis, don't be cruel. I'm like, oh no.
Did you do any Merle Haggard?
Gosh, no.
You could have gotten in some good y'alls.
No, I will never say that word as long as I live here. I'm sorry, I'm a recent transplant and I'm not going to. There are some things I will not pick up.
Oh,
I
just
apologize.
wait, Janet. Just wait. You'll get there.
I'm thinking when I go back, I'm sure that somebody's going to want to interview me and I'm just going to have to be like, well, hi y'all, how y'all doing? And they're just going to look at me and I'm like, oh no, I just did that for show. There's no way, I'm not doing that.
You will be surprised because I've had friends of mine come down here to stay and be surprised at how many accents they don't hear. And then they'll go back home and suddenly the accent will jump out of their throat and they're like, what just happened?
Where did that come
Where did that come from?
It just sneaks up on you, I'll tell you.
Yeah, at some point you will be, if you don't say, I would say you'll say, upon moving to Austin, you'll say your first y'all within the first month or so. And you won't even notice it. You won't even notice
Well, I've been
it.
here for months and I haven't.
You don't know that.
Oh, no. Somebody says, y'all come and sit. I'm like, yes, we all will. And I'll do that back at them. No, I won't do it. I mean, if I go somewhere and I hear a voice from another country, if I go with a bunch of Scottish people, I'm never going to pick it up. But man, I love hearing it. Or I would pick up a Canadian going about to, and I would, just because I hear them doing it and it sounds cool, just because I happen to be around it and it sounds cool, but
Right.
I don't know how cool that you all thing is. So I'm going to, I'm refraining for now.
So we got publishing, we got performance art, we got hosting. Out of all the hats you wear, which one do you find yourself leaning more to?
Leaning more to. Well, it's a non-profit, hours a day, every day, Scars Publications for running the magazines and doing books, so that takes up by far most of my time. I enjoy doing doing the open mic that I ran in Chicago, and I was thinking about setting up something like maybe once a month here. I won't name places, but you know.
I have a feeling you're going to.
I would like to do it, but and because when I first started doing that open mic, they had no sound system. We have little amps and mics and stands, and I would do all that stuff, and I would set all that stuff up. And when I would do features, I created the Wink Martin. Well, my husband created the Wink Martindale microphone, the long skinny thing with a little ball at the end. So I got to be like a game show host for one of my features, which was great. We took one of my old retro style phones and piped it with a microphone, so you could be on the phone, but it's actually a microphone going through the amp. So I was the multimedia. I was named that the Czarina Multimedia something from another open mic host, because at one point I was asked to do a show, and it was right after I was almost killed in an auto accident, and I came back, and the gentleman, who was a man who eventually took over the open mic from, said, "Oh, you're on the scene, you should have a feature." And I'm like, I've been in a hospital for 6 weeks and recovering for 6 months. I'm not on the scene, but okay, I'll do it. And I just thought, I'm not going to do a show where I just stand and read. So I set up a PowerPoint show on a big screen, and I just sat there and had images going back and forth, and now I would put in background music that was with stuff, and he just was like, "This is crazy with all this stuff." And I'm like, well, nobody needs to see my mug all the time, or something. I found it funny that one of the times I did it, I had a camera that was hooked up to a TV, and the camera was right there on my face, and my face was right there. You could look at me, or you could see me on TV right there. And one person said, "You know, I know you're right there, but I couldn't help but just stare at the TV while watching your show, because that's just what you like." And I'm like, yeah, it's just looking
Did
for
it
different
put on
things.
10 pounds? That must have been interesting, sitting side by side.
I actually did something once where I did a show with video stuff and certain poems. I'm like, I'm gonna see if I can draw them. So I will video record myself markering it, and I'll put that on video. I talk about something with a palm tree, and you'd see me drawing a palm tree on the screen while I was doing so. Just trying to come up with anything for as many different ways to have info out. And that was something I liked about the open mic that I ran. Since I did the literary magazines, I used to say at the ending, if you have very short poems, 10 lines or fewer kind of thing, it's very possible, because things start early. If things aren't there right away, I may go, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to read, this is something from somebody called this." And I would sit up and read other people's stuff, and I would send an email. I'm like, "By the way, I read your stuff, and it's now on a YouTube video. You can check it out if you like. If you hate it and don't want it, let me know, and I can get rid of it." And that I always give a, "Oh my God, that's so wonderful." I'm like, I'm just trying to get your stuff out in as many forms as I can.
Exactly.
You know, it's going to be on a YouTube thing, and because the open mic was video recorded as a podcast, it was on a podcast, and I just inundate the universe with poetry.
I love it. As a producer / host, I mean, you're pretty much a dream to artists out there. You know, because you don't just shuffle them on. You're more than just a ferryman. Like when you host, most of my friends that host will tell me that their favorite part about it is that they don't, for X amount of hours, they don't get to be a host, they get to be a fan. you know, and that's how you treat everybody, whether or not it's the first time getting on the open mic kind of thing.
That was one of the edicts of the open mic that I had to learn and remember and pass down, that everyone is welcome.
Mm-hmm.
There was one guy who would say things ripping on religions and Judaism and Zionists or something, and I'm like, all right, he's well known in later places, he's always here, so I'm going to make sure he's on and out of the way before Jewish people might be coming in and having an issue with it. But I'm like, I'm not going to tell you. I mean, I'm not going to tell anybody that they can't,
Right.
give them their space and do their thing. And so that's one thing you try to remember. Even if you can't stand it,
Yeah.
I don't like rhyming poetry at all. By the way, that's a base rule. I'm like, we don't consider rhyme. We see rhymes, we're like, sorry, this is out. We're not considering it. Sorry. I mean, if something catches a rhyme or in spots or things like that, that's totally fine. But
Yeah.
because you look at the rhyme instead of the message when you're doing that, and you get lost in that, which I hear people do that, and I'm like, well, all right, yay, that was wonderful.
There's got to be a subtlety. It can't be so obvious that it hits you. It can't be a roses are red by the time, because you're hanging on that A-B all the time.
I think at one point, my husband had to point out to me that I did accept a piece of rhyming poetry, but it was just so well pieced out together that I didn't even notice it.
Right.
Which nobody knows how to write well enough usually, and they're just looking for, I've got to come up with a rhyme for this word and make it fit into it,
Yeah.
which means that the writing is
And
good.
you got to be at peace for where the poem goes.
I think Neil deGrasse Tyson said something like, poets write poetry, regular people rhyme stuff. Everyone else just rhymes stuff and stuff.
Tell us a little bit about the literary magazines. So they're poetry only, or do you take longer form content? What kind of, do they have various things? There's two that you do run.
There are two literary magazines. One's named after a poem that I wrote called Children, Churches, and Daddies that talks about the dysfunctionality of those things, which is why I'd have to write that in a byline, the unreligious, non-family oriented literary mag, because back in the days with snail mail before email came out, I'm a Christian mother of three and here are my rhyming poems. And I'm like, no, I can't do this. But no, poetry and short stories primarily. Over the years, it has gone through a lot of things where it would have news sections. It used to be a 100-page, 8.5 by 11 thing with PETA stories and news stories and a philosophy monthly section and all sorts of stuff. Or I'd have the AIDS Watch where there'd be news on AIDS information in the 90s. Down in the Dirt magazine was originally a supplement inside of cc&d. It's easier to say cc&d instead
What
of
is
Children,
CC?
Churches. Children, Churches, and Daddies is the full name of the magazine.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because I was like, CC Music Factory.
No, CC
CC&d.
Not like CCD from Catholicism. No, it's Children, Churches, and Daddies, which is nothing. It talks about all the wrong things with that. So yeah. But over the years, CC&D, which you could see from the logo on the book right here.
Got it.
Down in the Dirt magazine originally was a supplement section of a couple poems or whatnot inside of cc&d back in '94. And I decided for giggles to start it up on its own because it's just a cool sounding name. And I did a lot of background work with that, and everybody just likes the name so much. Down in the Dirt. So I was like, all right, I'll just start doing that, and I finally ended up breaking down. It used to be as a regular magazine. Now I release it through Amazon. It still has its ISSN number, but you can't show it too well because it has an ISBN number and is sold in the United States and in Europe and the UK. And it actually, people buy it in the UK. I'm like, wow, I'm getting euros or getting pounds for this is the coolest thing. Granted, it's next to nothing, but because we've got to do everything else for it. But the magazines are slightly different in the sense that cc&d has sections. The front section is poetry, and then there's prose. And if I do any editorials, they only go into cc&d, the Boss Lady's editorial, blah, blah, blah. Or people might send essays, and I'm like, all right, you're going to be in Philosophy Month because you're about a general topic. Or if you're about something current right now, I call it the lunchtime poll topic, which is a reference to the movie Heathers, where they would say, here's a lunchtime poll topic, answer this, and if you have something on current topics, then that would be in there as well. Down in the Dirt, it's and there's also art section, a lot of art in cc&d, so I stuff a lot of artwork from people in most everywhere. Down in the Dirt is starting to get some artwork, but otherwise it is mostly short stories and occasional poems, and I just plunk them in the order I received them. There's no order of like having a section of poetry or short stories or anything like that.
Well, we have so much fun on here talking about how people made their break into the business and everything. I mean, how did that happen for you, Janet?
I started trying to get poetry published as soon as I got out of school, and I was rejected. And then I would get copies of magazines, little saddle stitch things, and I would notice that all of the people that were rejecting me were editors of magazines. And I thought, little light bulb, bing, went off in my head. I'm like, well, why don't I do that then? And so I called it Scars Publications, based on Scars, a prose poem of mine. This is how, creative I was. I'm like, I don't know, give it a title, which seems to work really well. Scars. cc&d seems like, what? What on earth is that? But I just kept running it for so long, and I've just kept changing it with things. And I've seen a lot of people are just like, oh, I'm bored with it, or I'm not going to do it. Since I was a designer and I did graphic work stuff for magazines, and that was my thing, this was no problem for me to.
So you kind of changed your goal kind of going in was one thing,
so that I'll get
you
known.
stayed.
then I
you
just obsessed
stayed.
on it. Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely did. Definitely did.
Nice.
And you mentioned you wanted to get your poetry published right out of school. Had you always been writing poetry? Has it been something that's you've always gravitated towards as a young child? Or?
The first poem I ever wrote, I was I was 9 years old.
I bet it rhymed.
It did. It's the only thing I'll admit to rhyming, because it rhymes like so intrinsically on so many levels. It's just a cute little thing.
Did y'all rhyme with ball or anything?
Well, no, there was no ball.
Okay.
I'm sorry, home under the sea. I'm not going to make any comment on relating that phrase to ball, so I'm not going to do it. But it was a childhood thing, and I was actually going to be working on. I have an artist that is coming up with making it a picture book as well for that little poem. So, and so yes, I did that, and that's the only poem I'll admit to writing that rhymes. And it's cute and blah blah blah.
I think we all have that phase, like, as poets, I think we all have that phase where I look back at some of my older stuff. And don't get me wrong, if I do rhyme, it's incidental. You won't see it coming. You won't see it in the scheme so much. But, because I don't feel it's necessary. There are times where I have sacrificed the line, or not say sacrificed, but reformed it, because maybe I didn't need to necessarily find something to rhyme right here. Maybe it needed to go on its own.
Mm-hmm.
But I go back and I look at some of the things I wrote in high school. Especially the love poems. And before I get halfway through them, at least 3 of my teeth fall out.
You just start gagging. You're like, how did this happen? This isn't something I
feel like I'm getting diabetes from reading this.
I bet you were like Mr. Romance, asking everybody to the prom with your poems.
Oh, the stories.
Things you write on big girls' lockers.
No.
But I feel it's so important to hold on to those things, really. I mean, especially if it's been a dream of yours to be a writer, if it's something you've always kind of felt is a very precious part of yourself. I love going back and reading some of the little scribblings that I wrote as a kind of like a very furtive 12-year-old who was like, let me write about all the wonderful things that are in my mind, and if of course, I mean, there's a little bit of shame involved in rereading that, but there's also kind of, it opens a world to a younger self, I think, and it kind of, I mean,
Yeah.
we've got to start somewhere, really.
Well, and that's where when you're young like that, I mean, that's when you're still so, connected up to the world of possibilities.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and all of that.
I wanted to say that's when you still have hope. Because that dies very
That's true.
quickly as you become an adult, so. I'm just kidding, sorry.
I'm going to hand you this book.
I'm sorry, I'm a
It's called
Chicago
Breaking
girl.
the Habit of Being My Joe Dispenza.
Was it about losing your mind and then finding it?
I had to say that. I had to say, back when you still had hope.
I think that's that perfect mix. That